Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. As usual, we like to give people at least 2 minutes to wrap up their previous meetings, and then we will get going. All right, I think we are going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for attending today to learn more about bacon. It is a new year, and there is more bacon and lots of things to talk about. Very excited to have you all here today. Today's agenda is on the screen, and we will be just doing some quick introductions and a high-level overview, and then we'll be sort of talking about the full product demo. So we will show you the interface and all of the high-level aspects. Certainly recommend getting a full demo if it looks like this could be helpful to you, and we're very happy to do it. We'll also be talking about some real-world customers and the solutions to some of their problems. We've had some new case studies written. All of those are on our website, but a couple new ones we have here as attachments in the webinar. With that, please do ask questions. There is a questions engine in here, and we do have engineers standing by to answer those. So if there's something that you see in the demo and you'd like to get a quick answer on that, please throw it up there, and we'll have people standing by to respond to those. And we'll be very, very excited to do so. And other than that, I think, Dave, why don't we move on to introductions and just kind of get through some of the housekeeping here as we jump into it. All right, that's me on the screen there on the left. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Bacon, and I'm really love doing these demos. One thing I found, though, is that my co-presenter today, Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers, is a much better presenter than me when it comes to doing the demos. So I've asked him to come along and do the actual demo, and that should be fun. And so Dave will be going through the actual UI, and I'll just give a brief intro at the beginning. That's pretty exciting. You can go to the next slide there, Dave. Important housekeeping item here is, as I mentioned, ask questions. Second, in a minute, we'll be throwing up a couple of quick polls just to make sure we can guide the conversation in a beneficial way for everybody. And then at the end, we'd be very grateful, and we will leave time for this, if you'd fill out our brief survey, and it will get you this awesome, super soft bacon t-shirt, which is both cool, and I have many of these, as you can probably imagine, and they really are the good soft t-shirts. So I highly recommend sticking around for the survey. And it's really helpful to us because we want to do better webinars, and we also want to improve the product constantly for everybody that's part of our community. So thanks very much in advance for that. Without further ado, I think we can probably launch our first poll. All right, which features are you most interested in seeing? We've got endpoint remote control, patching, software installs and multi-file installs, profiles / policy management, and monitoring. So we'll see how those come out here. You can see the looks pretty even so far, although monitoring, it took the lead, but now it's equal with profiles, endpoint remote control, and software installs and multi-file installs are sort of third, and then patching is kind of last. So that's great. That's very, very handy information. It sounded like pretty spread across the boat, although profiles and monitoring seem to be the two biggest ones there. Well, we got one more poll, and then we'll kind of move into the briefing. So, which of the following describes your top business challenges? Check all that apply. Patching systems, maintaining and managing security concerns, having the correct tools to work efficiently, or keeping up to date on ways to keep your business competitive. So, seeing a lot in the middle charts there, having correct tools to work efficiently. Well, that's probably a good one to be first, since you're definitely going to be talking about that today. Although seeing a lot with patching, 50% people said patching, 60% maintaining and managing, and 69% saying just having the correct tools, which is exactly the pain point that I went through 5 years ago, along with my staff and my other consulting company that made us just decide we wanted to build this tool. So I think with that, yeah, pretty good spread there, but definitely having the correct tools was number one, with maintaining and managing security concerns second, and patching third. So I think with that, Dave, we can jump right into, oh, that's right, one last slide before that, which is if you want to learn more about Bacon and you want to see it in little snippets, we have a YouTube channel for Bacon Unlimited, and it has our Bacon bits on it. Also has older previous webinars, so lots of data up there. There's about 100 videos or something up there. We add more every week, so please do check those out if you think that could be helpful, and also feel free to set up a demo with us anytime if you think this might be the right tool to solve your problems. We're very happy to do so. So with that, let's jump into what is Bacon and what does it kind of have under the hood here that will be beneficial to you. I'm just going to give a quick briefing here, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dave to jump into the real demo, because I think it's most beneficial to people to see the UI. But from a high level, what you see on the screen here, right, we've got this cross-platform tool. It's very modern. It's built in Python, React, JavaScript on the front end. It uses MySQL for its caching database. It is a very, very modern app compared to a lot of the other tools that are out there in the market that were made some 15, 20, even 30 years ago in some cases. And what we found was it just took so many tools to get our work done when the environment had any level of complexity that we just needed to do something much better. So we wanted something that could manage Macs, Windows, Linux of many, many flavors. And we've even added mobile device management for Apple. So that's not just the Mac OS devices, but also for the iOS devices. Reason we did that was we found that with Apple, the Mac OS operating system really needed to have some MDM API calls because they deprecated some of the underlying CLI controls. And so in order to be able to control it fully, we needed to have both that CLI control and the MDM API. And so when doing that, we also added iOS. We will look into doing Android more towards the end of 2023, but we have all of these capabilities today. So what does that mean? It means any of these device types I've just mentioned, servers, workstations of any of those kinds, whether they're remote or in your data centers or offices, we can control them. So we can do remote control of them. We can patch them. We can install any kind of installable file on them. We can deliver any kind of files to them. We can monitor them in real time. And we can do those jobs that I just mentioned in real time. And probably one of the biggest things we do that's really a big differentiator is our profiles feature, which allows us to control systems sort of every different setting in a way that is not only sort of comprehensive. So on Windows, you can do group policy control, but you can also control registry settings directly or WMI settings. So you have really any way that the system can be set or set up, we can control that from Bacon. Sort of the additional part that really sets us apart is the ability to monitor what we're doing. So not only can we monitor all the health capabilities or the health aspects of your systems, but we can monitor their compliance to the policy profiles that we put in place. You want to control the firewall rules on 1,000 Macs or Linux machines or Windows machines and have them all have the same rules, or 5 different groups with 5 different sets of rules. That's something you can do in Bacon. But you can also control any group policy or any sort of sub policy of Mac OS, whether it be MDM or through the CLI, which some things work better in either of those two ways and seems to change sort of every 6 months with Apple. With Linux, any config file, right? You can change the settings. It's quite simple actually with Bacon. So all of these things are combined together, the monitoring and the inventory, which gives you visibility, the remote control, the software install, the patching and the policy stuff. That's sort of the control part of it. And then the automation is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of creating a lot of value, because all the things I just mentioned, you can put those into much more automated states. So building a new laptop for an end user, as an example, is as simple as bringing up a machine and putting the agent on it. You can even just build an image that has the agent on it, and it will self-assemble all of your software, all of your settings, and everything else, even adding it to domain, adding users, all on sort of startup. So these are things that people are doing actively today, not just us internally, but many, many of our clients, and there are things that you can do. Last thing I'll say before I hand it over to Dave is we also have a very unique support model, which is we believe that in order to get the most value out of the tool, you need to have access to us, not just for a bug fix or a feature request, or if you don't know how to set something up, but what about if you're trying to use Bacon to deploy a script and you really don't know how to build that script correctly, sort of more of a DevOps kind of function. Some people have a lot of those skills internally, not everyone does. We offer building those for you, since it's a deep skill set for us, at no additional cost. All of the profile setups, all the policy settings, that's where Bacon has some more sophistication, and we don't want you to feel like you have to pay professional services or figure it out on your own. That's something that we can train you on. It is something that we can do for you, and that is included with our subscription. So it's a big differentiator for us, and people have given us a lot of feedback that they really like that aspect, so decided to start talking about it when we do these webinars. And with that, Dave, I think enough of me chitter-chattering. Why don't we have you bring up the actual UI and take us through the overview, just to get everybody familiarized with the layout and the different features. And I think it's fair to say, right, Dave, we can't go into full depth on every feature today because we'd be here for like 8 hours, but we can at least give people the highlights so they understand how it works and how it feels, and decide whether or not it's something that they want to look more deeply at.
Yeah, pretty much. We're going to take a high-level overview through Bacon. I mean, I'd love to sit here and talk about every single feature for at least 2 hours. If you are interested in these features, of course, we're happy to give demos. And again, I'm happy to talk about your various use case scenarios and ways to use Bacon to solve your problems for as long as you let me. So by all means, feel free to reach out. All right, so starting off here, we're on the overview page. This is where you'll be put once you log into Bacon. And I want to go over the widgets that we have on our screen here. So first, in the top left, we have Alert. This is going to show you the different alerts you've configured in your environments. So we can set up rules for looking at services to make sure those are running. We can do uptime indicators, so is a device connected or disconnected. Of course, we have the performance metrics, so CPU utilization, memory, disk space, as well as looking at things like patch age. So maybe you have 2 patches, but one of those patches is 4 months old, and also patch count. So you set a threshold of 10 patches. As soon as someone hits that, you get an alert for it. So that's what these ones here would be. Then we also have profile alerts. So this is a really nice feature of Bacon where you can apply a profile or let's say apply a configuration even, and then validate that it works. So anytime you set stuff up in Bacon, you can always second check to make sure it works. Or in this case, maybe you want to be alerted if that profile isn't enacted or if Bacon had to redo that setting. That's what this will show you here. Next up, we have endpoints. This is a pretty simple connected or disconnected counter. We have distribution. This shows you what operating systems you have in Bacon. So here we have Windows with very large CentOS in our lab here. In the bottom left, we have patches. So this will show you how many patches or packages you have to deploy in your environment. So you have quite a few for Linux, just to make this graph look a little nicer. Then we have antivirus protection. This will allow you to track if your machines are actually running the AV that you've installed. One really nice thing here is that we're able to allow you to specify your service of choice or services that you'd like us to track as AV. So that'll contribute to this graph here, as well as we have an alert for AV as well. So you can set that up, set that rule up, and then have it let you know if AV stops running on a machine. The benefit here is that you're never waiting on us to add your AV of choice into Bacon. You can just simply go in there and select it. So if you're, I don't know, between AVs, maybe you're moving from one to the other, you can select them both and then keep this counter accurate. And lastly, another security focused one, we have encrypted hard drives. So this will allow you to report back on which of your hard drives are encrypted. So if you're on Windows, think BitLocker, Mac is File Vault, and of course, Linux has many different versions of encryption. We'll be able to track that all here. Next up, as we walk down the nav bar, we're going to go over to monitoring. So these are the rules I was talking about before. We have some here for looking at a service. We have a connection indicator, CPU threshold, and like I mentioned, patch count. So these are the ones that you can set up yourself. Then we also have these profile deployment rules. These are automatically created when you make a profile, and this is how we can track if those configurations you're setting to your endpoints are actually present on the machine. Once a rule triggers, we move over to alerts. This is where you'll find all of those triggered alerts, and so it'll tell you the severity. Here for our demo, we just set them almost critical. It'll tell you which rule was triggered, and of course, the endpoint that triggered it and when it was triggered. And then lastly, on the monitoring side, if you have any static displays in your office, you can use Knock Dashboard to get a good overview of the health of the machines managed with Bacon. And here we have a filter we can use to, let's say, only that critical, and we'll get rid of disconnect as well. And this also will continuously scroll through it. So all these different data points, if you're logged into Bacon, you have a mouse like I do, not just like a static TV in the room, you can also click through here, and that'll bring you over to the endpoint page for that device, so you can start working that way. And before we get into this, I do want to cover the endpoints table. So let's go back here, going over to hardware and endpoints. This endpoints table pulls back a lot of different data points, and this is kind of where I end up spending a lot of time, where you may end up spending a lot of time as well. So we have a lot of different things here. One of my favorites is serial number, but we also have IP address and host name, a lot of different stuff here. And we're able to search through all of these different columns using our quick search. So if I type in maybe the first part of a host name, I can pull up that. Or if I type in CentOS, and what Bacon's doing under the hood is it's searching through every single column here. So it might pick up CentOS in the OS platform or possibly in the OS version, right? It can do like the first 2 octets of an IP address. And so this makes it really easy to kind of have an idea what you're looking for, search through Bacon, and pull back that information. For more static configs, we can also add filters. So let's say I know specifically I want to look at this IP range. I can add that as a filter under IP address here. So it starts with, I'll just copy and paste into there. All right, so it's that simple. We can also add them together. So let's say OS platform equal to Windows. And there you go. So moving forward, let's take a look at an individual endpoint page. So for right now, let's pick our Win10 Paul Blart machine here. So we have a couple different tiles I'd like to cover. So first off, system, that's the default we land on. This is going to show you more in-depth information about the hardware on the machine. So we see this is a VMware VM. This would be a serial number like a Dell service tag, that kind of thing here. Then we have CPU model, how many cores, RAM utilized versus available, stuff like that. As we keep going through here, or actually before I leave, let's also cover the tags. So this is good for inventory. We're able to add tags to this UI here, either existing or we can type new ones here. And then this can be managed throughout the admins of the UI, so you can always keep it clean. And then we also have notes individual for each machine. So if you log in with me, you'll see the tags that we've all set, and you also see the notes that I've updated here as well. Next, moving on to disk, it'll show you as many disks as you have. So here we have a C drive that's unencrypted. If it was encrypted, it would have a little green lock icon in here as well. And then over on the right, we have recovery keys. So Bacon's able to escrow these keys. So if I have BitLocker on here, my recovery key will be in here. We have network next. This is going to show you all of the network interfaces on the machine. So you can see here we have interface name, IP address, as well as the MAC address here. That can be very useful for just like going through ARC caches or trying to find specific devices without knowing where they are or what they are. Next up, for our policies tile, this shows you the different profiles we've pushed to this machine. Again, you can kind of think these like GPOs. They're able to do a lot of things like setting registry keys, setting up services, setting even, let's say, network card information or settings. You can do all that kind of stuff through a state. And so we're able to easily see what's being applied here, as well as what groups this device is a member of. Groups are going to be very useful for deploying software. Maybe you want to monitor a group of endpoints in a specific fashion, or again, push profiles over there. Groups can be good for that too. And so here we see we have two different kinds of groups. We have static and dynamic groups. So static groups are going to be exactly what you think. We're going to set up a group, we're going to put endpoints in there, and they'll stay that way. Dynamic groups, in combination with the endpoints table we saw before, allow you to set those filters that we were looking at and make a group based on those filters. So in that case, I had my Windows workstations with a specific IP address. And so any device that gets onto that subnet that is Windows will then join this dynamic group. Once it doesn't meet that criteria, it'll leave that dynamic group. Next up here, we have software. So this is going to show you the software on this machine specifically. It'll show you the software name, the software version. But then we also have a really nice column here, number of endpoints. This is going to give you a little bit more insight than you would typically get just looking at one machine. With this, I can tell that my devices, or at least 9 devices, all have the same version of this software. So when I click on this, it'll show me the devices that also match that same software name and version. Next up, if we go to available patches, this will show you what patches the machine itself has available. Right, and I can install these individually, but we'll cover patching in the larger full patching menu that includes all the other endpoints. But do know that the interaction is exactly the same. Only difference is this is a shortcut to just select one device with these patches and get them installed. Next up, we have services. I do want to take a second to note here, we have the same kind of UI features. We have our columns here that we can custom configure, add and remove. We have our quick search, and just like before, we have those filters now specific to the services table. And so from the individual endpoint view, we can start and stop services, as well as mark as antivirus. That's what I mentioned in the overview. This is how you can set any service of your choice, as we did here with Windows search to make that graph a little bit bigger, to set up any kind of AV monitoring that you need. So it's completely customizable on your end. And then lastly here, we have a ton of logs, over 9,000 logs it looks like. And so this is going to show you all the stuff that Bacon is doing on the endpoint. So we can see here that we were executing jobs. A lot of them were complete. Some of them were failed because the machine was offline for a while. And this will give you very detailed output on how those jobs work, which we'll cover a little bit later as well. And lastly, before we leave this endpoint page, I do want to highlight the remote. So off in the top right here, kind of stealthy, kind of out of the way, we have the ability to remote over to this machine. Now, this is going to be a separate process from the agent install, so it's completely optional, but it's always included in Bacon anyway. So here we have the standard screen connection. I probably won't blow your mind with this one, but it functions exactly how you would think, right? We can send control delete, we can pass our clipboard back and forth, and of course we can type directly into a text field. So let's say if I want to pass a password, but not put on the clipboard, that's what I would use. Moving forward though, we also have shell. This one kind of blew my mind, so I like to show it off. This shell allows you to have an actual interactive shell on the machine. So if I launch PowerShell from here, I'm actually able to set a variable and then get the result back from that variable. With some software I've used, every time you send a command, it doesn't actually keep the same session. This one does, which is very nice. So this allows you to let's say, hack around the computer, figure something out, and then write that script to apply to other ones. When we move forward, we also have a file system view. This file system view is going to be very good for downloading logs or maybe uploading files to the machine. And so you can navigate through that machine pretty simply. And then to download a file, we would just click on it. Or as you see up here, we have the option to upload a file. So it makes it very simple to find a device you want to work on, maybe want to install some software. We can go to the temp folder, we can upload that software, and then we can go back to shell and execute it, right? Or maybe want to move some config files around or pull some logs from a different piece of software. That's pretty simple to do without too much effort. All right, so that kind of covers endpoints. We went over groups in the example, but here's where you go to actually see all the groups in the system as well as manage them. Right, like I said before, our dynamic groups are running on those filters. So here we have those filters, filters set, and any endpoints that meet this criteria will then be added to this group. Next up, kind of similar to endpoints, we have MDM devices. We've done a couple webinars on MDM devices. Oh, wait, let me actually switch over to my dev environment here with some Apple devices in there for us. There we go. So we've done a couple webinars on these. We also have Bacon Bits available if you'd like to get more into the weeds here. But just as a quick overview, we're able to pull back device-specific information for iOS devices. So we have system, we have disk, we also have network information, so it can pull back carrier data, different identifiers on here. So EIDs, ICCIDs, IMEIs, those are all going to be available for you here. So you have some record of them, even if the device is offline or unreachable. Next up, we have software. This is going to look a lot like the other one we saw, but this is actually including software for all the endpoints in Bacon. I stayed on the dev version of Bacon just to show you that we actually put all the software in one table. So if I look at the platforms available here, you're going to see we have Linux, but we also have Apple TVs. We have iOS, right? So you can actually see all the software at once. And if you wanted to maybe filter for certain ones or exclude certain ones, that's pretty simple. So we could go and let's exclude Windows. And that's only going to show me software that's not running on a Windows platform. When we move to services, again, it's going to be very similar. Again, the only difference between this versus the screen we saw before is that this shows you the services for all of your endpoints, but the search still works the same way, as do the filters. Moving forward to patching, I'm going to have John help me out in a little bit here. For patching, actually, we switch back to our demo environment for patching. There we go. So for patching, this is going to show you all the patches that your endpoints are reporting that they need. So here in this column, we can see the number of endpoints that are reporting that they need the patch. For this example, we'll just select all of them and go to install. And it really is this easy to push out patches. As you see me kind of flying through the UI, it doesn't take a long time to get to that level of proficiency yourself because we reuse the same elements and we try to keep the product overall readable and easy to use. So let's go here to endpoints. And we can select any endpoints here. One thing to keep in mind is even if we have, let's say, 200 endpoints or 200 Windows endpoints, it's only going to show the endpoints that need the patches in this menu. And it'll tell you how many patches they need, so at least one. As we move through here, we can schedule our execution time. So I'll explain these. Install immediately is exactly what it says on the tin. When you push this job out, it'll try to install it right now. For the two devices offline here, they will just fail to get the patch. When they log on, nothing will happen. They miss their time for it. Typically, I use run when connected. This is going to run it on the devices that are currently reporting into Bacon. So these ones in green here. And then for the ones that are offline, it'll catch them once they come back online. So it'll queue that job for them. We also have the option of scheduling time. And so you can schedule a time to push that patch out to the devices and they'll install it at that time. Pretty simple here. And then we have relentless mode. Now, I like to have John cover this because he has some history with the feature. John, can you kind of take over and give us a quick walkthrough on how relentless mode works?
Sure. So, yeah, we originally just had those three that you already mentioned, the install immediately, schedule time, and run when connected. And what happened was we were talking to some one client and then later in the week, a potential client, and they both kind of mentioned the same thing. And I thought to myself, as I've remarked to you before, that I really should have thought of this first, but they thought of it, and I love that. And we get a lot of great ideas from our client base and the community at large. And so what they sort of said was, look, we work on patch windows. In other words, we get approved to do like 2 hours on a Sunday, or 8 hours in the middle of the night on Saturday or something like that. And management is expecting that all of our systems will be up right up until that last minute, and will only be down for that, say 8 hour period, and everything will be back by that time. So in order to accommodate that in Bacon, we had to come up with a scheduling system that didn't just have a start time, but also had an end time. And so there's really two components here. It's not just the scheduling piece. The part that actually makes it relentless, and why we call it relentless mode, is it's also a continuous process through a multi-reboot patching job. So one thing we saw that was problematic with some other software that did patching or managed patching was that reboots would occur, and then the job would stop until a person, sort of worked on it. And in our feature, what it does is the job will pick up where it left off and continue to run the patches that you've selected against the machines that you've selected, as long as they actually need those. It's very smart. It doesn't try to install patches where they don't belong. But when it does that, if it takes 3 reboots to get through all the patches, then it's going to do all those patches and reboots in perfect order. It's going to log every single one of those steps for every single machine along the way in an easy, readable way, so you kind of understand how things happen, and if something does go wrong on a machine or something, where it went wrong, so you can go easily and quickly troubleshoot. So when you do relentless mode, it defaults to rebooting if the patch requires it. You can also turn on rebooting when patches do not require reboots, sort of more of a system refresh concept. And you can even do the don't do reboots, similar to the other feature, where it'll only do the parts of the patching it can do without doing a single reboot. So most of the time, I don't use those last two. On occasion, I've had some machine memory leaks where that middle one's pretty helpful. But typically, I go with the first one, and I just match up my window and make sure I've got the right patches and the right systems when I kind of go through the wizard, and voila, I get exactly what I'm looking for in the end. And I've got all the logs to check on the success the next day when I wake up, having had a nice night of rest instead of watching patches happen all night. And the other thing I can do is be awoken if I actually do have a problem on a machine. So if some monitoring alerts trip and maybe this service, like a SQL service, doesn't come back up, I'm going to know about that. So I don't have to worry that something's not going to be working after everything's done. If it comes up correctly, I won't get any alerts that buzz my cell phone or do anything like that. But if something does go wrong, I will be alerted instead of having to sit there watching it the entire time. So patching can be a drag. This is a great way to get around that and do it a lot more easily. It's very easy, pretty self-explanatory to walk through. Yeah, that's my experience, Dave, and hopefully people get a lot of good use out of this beyond what we're already seeing out there, which is pretty much everyone using this. So thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, my experience was kind of waking up early Saturday morning to make sure my servers is patched, so not having to do that is always very nice. I'm sure we've all been there. It's riveting stuff. All right, so moving on down our nav bar here, we're going to go over to repository. So let's go over files. These are exactly what they look like. We're able to upload files into Bacon of any type. These could be font files, archives, executables, packages, you name it. And then again, we have our search, our filters. We can push these files to machines. So if I look at our Git installer here, I can go into Actions and Deploy. I'll select my platform as Windows since this is an exe. Then I'll choose Launcher. What this means is Bacon will put the file on the machine and then execute it. On the next screen here, I can select any eligible endpoints. Because I chose Windows, that's what I'm going to see in this list. And then we have our installation location, which is where Bacon's going to put that file. One really nice thing here, I think it's something John pointed out to me when I first started in training, was that you can use this and be as creative as you'd like. So you can use this to push font files to machines. So you can give everybody the latest font update or push templates to a specific folder. It doesn't have to just be a file install. You can use this however you'd like to get work done, which is also very nice. So moving forward, we have run as. You can run as system by default. Or you can specify user. That may be good for accessing any external resources. Maybe you're running a script that has to access a network share, right? That'll be very useful here. And then we have executable flags. So if we're running an MSI, we might want to run like a quiet with a no restart, maybe add in like a log, right? You can do all that kind of stuff in here. Or if the application supports it, maybe you want to add a license key to an application or tell it not to do automatic updates. This is how you can kind of take a one file installer and then customize it how you need, and the product is fully set up on the end user's machine. Then again, our scheduling is going to look very similar with the option of, or without the option, excuse me, of relentless mode. Unfortunately, you can't install Chrome and just reboot a computer. It might be funny the first couple times, but not overall too useful. So we have deploy immediately. Hey, look, if we don't mess around in IT, why are we here? So we have deploy immediately at a specific time. So same kind of scheduling UI. And then run when connected, which, to remind you again, will run it on the endpoints that are online and then queue it for the endpoints that are offline. That's all well and good as long as you're using a single file, but what if you have a multi-file install? So we're going to move from files to bundles. A bundle is simply a collection of files. I can select multiple here, go to actions and click create bundle. One I like to show off, because I think a lot of us have experience with this one, is the Office 365 installer. So if I look here at this bundle, this is going to show you our setup executable, right? This is in the files repository. All these are pulled into this bundle. We have our custom config XML, and then our Office install script to kind of tie everything together. One really nice feature too I didn't show off in the last screen is that any kind of file like these plain text ones, the XML, the PS1, these can be modified in Bacon. So if I go to edit here, I have my XML. If I do that for the other file, I'll have a little syntax highlighted PowerShell script. So you're able to mix those files into a bundle, and then you can deploy that bundle by just going to deploy here. And this is now going to bring over all three of those files, and it's going to launch the script. We'll select our endpoints that we want to put it on. And again, same UI from last time. So we have our install location, run as, any additional flags, which will be passed to our script, and then scheduling the deployment time. So that's all well and good for doing single installs, or let's say an on-demand install. When it comes to automation, that's really where this starts to shine. So we have states and profiles. States are basically individual configurations, or maybe a small related group of them. So you can have a state to install software, you can have a state to enable services, a state to push config files, right? Or in this case, we have some states to configure automatic updates in Windows. These states are really as creative as you want to get, or really able to solve any problems that you run into. I find states can cover everything, because it can even just execute a script on a specific schedule for you. So I won't get too far into this because, I mean, I'd love to, but it's not why we're here right now. So if I take a look at this one here for configuring automatic updates, this is actually pulled from our Git repository. So we have a lot of different comments in here on how it works. And of course, we give you training on the product so you're never left in the dark, as well as coaching or helping you build out states if you'd like to start automating things in your environment. So here we're able to configure automatic updates to auto download, schedule the install on a very specific time every Saturday on the 4th week of the month. That's very specific, but if that's what your environment needs, we're able to do that quite simply. Then you can take this state, or maybe a collection of related states. Let's say if you're installing software, in our environment, we push out all of our software through states. So your brand new workstation will have 5 or 6 states you want to push out, and that's how we save ourselves time on deployment. So you go over to profiles, which is just a collection of states, and then you can push these out to different groups. So click deploy here. It'll ask us to select our group, and then it pushes it out that way. So that's a very high level overview of states and profiles. It does get more in depth from there, but not really first time look webinar material. And then once you've pushed this out, we can actually move over to our job log. So Bacon has a very robust logging system. Everything you do in the system is logged. So you can see here all of my activity. I started a desktop session. I made that tag earlier called new tag. All that's logged, but so are the jobs. So when you push jobs out to machines, this one's actually in progress. This is going to show you exactly what happens on these machines and why. So we can look at any files that have been deployed or any jobs that have been deployed, that kind of thing. And it'll give you a verbose output on what's going on. So here I can push out a specific package. It'll say, hey, this package has been put on the machine and it's in the proper location. If your scripts have any kind of output, those will be here in the task log as well. When you're doing any kind of state setups, anything you set on the machine will also be logged. So let's say if we were looking to set a specific config, let's look at one of these profile deploys, flip the status over right here for Windows Update settings. So this will go through and make sure that all those settings were properly configured. And then it even gives you a little output here of what the settings are if you have to just double check, what does done actually mean. Next up, we have our schedules. So this will show you what is being automated in your environment. Right now, we're pushing out 2 different profiles. One of them is for installing Firefox and Mac OS. That's happening, I think, every 10 minutes. And then the next one here is happening every day. That's setting wallpaper on a machine. And not to skip past it, along the same line, the MDM side here is how you can do something similar for mobile devices. So if we go over to Profiles and MDM, this is how we're able to push out mobile configs to those Mac OS and iOS devices. Very similar workflow. We choose our config. If we take a look here, we have a lot of different information. We can see the actual config itself in XML format too. Then deploying it, like everything else, is as simple as going to Actions and Deploy. And then here, of course, you'll want to use your Mac OS devices or possibly a group of Mac OS devices or iOS MDM devices. So we've covered a lot of the left-hand side here. Last one we're going to go to is the administration side. New things to point out. So Bacon actually has a nice web interface. So you're able to go here to handle your licensing. And also, Bacon runs on Docker, several containers in Docker. We're able to actually skip the need for you to log into the server. If you ever have to reset stuff or restart stuff as directed by support, you can do so here. And then we also have that tag manager I was talking about earlier, where you can see the tags you've put in the system and which endpoints or other objects they apply to. Moving forward, we also have a network scanner. So this can help you install Bacon. We're able to reach out on the network over WMI as well as SSH. And then all of your agent installers are going to be built into the product for you as well. Just save you a little bit of time downloading stuff. One thing I love to cover is our RBAC support. So we're able to create users in the system, or we can also tie in with on-prem Active Directory to pull users from that. Maybe there's a specific admin group you want to have get access to Bacon without making a whole new set of accounts. That's how you can do that. Well, the nice part here is if you look at permissions tab, or the permissions column, excuse me, we have the option of assigning roles to groups. So if we go over here, we have a role of patch. And remember, we had a group earlier that was sorting by subnet for East Coast Factory Network. So this user, Bob Larry, only has permissions to patch the devices of East Coast Factory Network. This is pretty nice. You don't have to just give someone keys to the castle. You can go through here and through this roles menu, define what they can do, and then choose what group they can influence with that role. Before I get off this too, we also have MDM, or excuse me, MDM, 2FA support. There we go, too many acronyms. So we have two-factor support as well, and that is kept separate between the end user or the users in Bacon side versus the LDAP side, so you can have different policies there. Also, we have the ability to integrate with different ticketing systems. So if they're not officially supported by this API side, you can just use your email like ingestion, your ticket ingestion endpoint by sending emails outbound from the system. We can connect to syslog servers so you can monitor the health of the underlying OS. Here's where we can integrate with Jira and Autotask for those alerts we were talking about earlier, as well as exporting our inventory information into ITGlue. Lastly, just again for another web interface perk, you're able to update your cert, which we actually need to do here, by using the web interface. And it's as simple as just going here and dragging and dropping your cert information here. Here we have our setup for Apple Mdm. Again, we've done a ton of webinars on this, and we have several Bacon Bits videos. What I'll say now, just to keep it brief, is that it's pretty simple to set up. It kind of walks you through the steps you need. for both setting up your Apple push notification service as well as any Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager that you may be using. Lastly, thing I love to highlight is that we have the appropriate guide for your version of Bacon available to you within the product, so you can download this PDF. It has instructions on how to set it up, what ports you need to open up on your network, and different pictures and examples of how to do stuff. And do keep in mind that we also help you with this as well. This is more just like a reference guide. Then we have our support channels. So you're able to create support tickets from within the product directly to go directly to us. We also have our support email and a portal to log into, as well as a Discord server. So you can join that to ask us questions about Bacon or get an additional real-time support, let's say, through that method. Earlier, John mentioned the Bacon Bits videos. We have a link to that YouTube channel here. Then we also have a script repository, so you can go get script and state templates. So don't want to stay on too long, John. I think it's a pretty good overview. So I can swing it back to you.
I think that's great, Dave. I think, we just have a little bit of time left here, and I want to make sure we leave some time at the end for everyone to get a chance to fill out the survey and a little break before their next meeting. So out of respect for them, we'll go kind of quickly here. I think we'll just quickly cover the new features coming out in 4.2 real quick. So one that's really exciting is we have a watchdog agent. People have become pretty dependent on Bacon. They're using it to do a lot of security controls to meet compliance requirements. We have one client, it's actually system source from our case study, is using over 250 of their controls are impacted by getting to use Bacon. So we're really happy that they were able to get so much value out of the product, and they were kind enough to offer to do a testimonial for us. And that's part of their case study, which is downloadable here. But in addition to that, we have this watchdog service because we need to keep Bacon running, and it really does a good job of that already. But on occasion, problems with the system or little glitches will come up. And one of the things we wanted to do was really harden that and also create a more fluid information pathway in case something does go wrong. So many of our clients have thousands of machines, and if you've got thousands of machines, the chance that one or two or three are going to go off in a month is substantial. So with the watchdog service, it's essentially a separate running service. If the machine is on and the Bacon service goes down, it will attempt to turn it back on. It will also alert the Bacon server as to what's going wrong with that agent, so you can try to figure it out. So in about 98% of all cases where we found an agent was offline, the simple fix for it was to restart it. And that's great, but we don't want to expect that you force people to go and restart their machines or something like that to get that service to restart. We'd like that to be more automated. So that's coming. The other thing is we've enhanced our health dashboard. And Dave, if you have the dev server up, if you want to just go there real quick, we can show the health dashboard. And in here, you'll notice it doesn't just give the service containers information where you can restart containers or all of them or whatever, but it also shows the different sort of caches, the queues that if you are having a problem on Bacon, it is possible, it's pretty rare, but it does come up that a queue gets too full or something like that, and you can flush them out here. So it'll show you that and actually give you the data you need to make that decision. It really shouldn't happen very commonly, but in larger environments, it's a little more common, and we wanted to make the tools readily available and quick to respond. The last one that I want to talk about there, and Dave already showed you how you could create a ticket in Bacon. Along with the ticket now, we include a complete support save. In other words, instead of you putting in a ticket and then us calling you and having to go gather information, the ticket will automatically include the files required for the support and dev teams to be able to see exactly where the issue that you're having occurred. We just want to minimize the time it takes to solve your problems and make sure everything's good. So now that we have so many customers, we're seeing more and more little angles that we could make it easier on you, which also makes it easier on us. So those are some things that are coming in 4.3. The other one is we've added a much nicer, more modern scrolling mechanism to all the pages. I think you can see it best from the endpoints page. It doesn't totally matter. Or actually maybe even better, the patching page, because it's a long list or something like that. But as you scroll through, you'll see there's no a selector at the bottom for viewing 5, 10, 50, 100, 500 at a time. You can have thousands and it will scroll through and sort of bring them up from cache on the screen. So you could scroll endlessly through thousands of items, like there's 13,000 something there, which is very, very helpful. So those are the new features coming in 4.2, and we'll probably have one more minor release, 4.3, and then a major release, 4.5, is slated just a few months out from now, and that's got two really exciting features that people have been asking for. One is single sign-on. Either Azure and Okta will be supported on day one, so you'll be able to have all of your accounts based on single sign-on, be able to do groups of users and things like that. And that's just good to make sure your entire IT team can see this in their single sign-on portal and just log in and have the appropriate rights and roles and responsibilities, etc. So that's coming. And then the other one is what we call proactive third-party patching. And while we can already patch your third-party apps like a Chrome or a Firefox or an Adobe Reader or something today, it's not looking out into the repository today of those apps and saying, there is a newer version of Chrome than the one that's already on your machines. And we wanted to sort of add a few features to that to make it really rich. So we had originally intended to do it by the end of 2022, but then we got a bigger wish list. And so what it will do for you is not only identify applications, we'll have top 100 in there, and you can add additional apps pretty easily in there. So as long as they have some sort of repository that can be accessed through API, which is very common these days, you can add any apps, which I think most of our competitors that do third-party proactive patching, usually that's all they do. They don't allow you to add your own apps to the list, and that can be very problematic if there's an app that they don't include, or if you have your own custom software. We will be able to do that. The other thing that you'll be able to do is select whether or not certain apps get automatically updated on certain groups of machines. So if you want to take all of your Windows laptops and you want to say, not only do I want Chrome identified when there's a newer version, I want it to automatically download and install that package and log all of that so I know that it's happened. Just a huge amount of automation to save time. And if you feel that that's something that would be beneficial to your environment, you'll be able to do that without really very much work at all. All of that will also be monitored. That's part of it, which is you'll be able to say, hey, if I do have more than X amount of apps or more than X amount of machines with an out-of-date piece of software, I can get email or ticket alerts to be generated. So all of that will be part of it. So we're really excited about the coming 6 months here. There's a lot of new stuff coming out. We do work at a very high pace here. That's one of the great things about having a 5-year-old software company instead of a 25-year-old software package. So that's all happening now. And we didn't really have enough time to go through the testimonials today, but we did leave them up there. You can go to our website and see a whole bunch of these case studies. We did put a couple that you could download too right here in the webinar, but they're very easy to go download off the website. And they'll give you a real sense of real customers and how they're using the software and what benefits they're seeing. We've been very grateful for all of the support that they've offered. And I think because we do offer sort of this unlimited support model on their related issues, we get a chance to talk to them a lot and we get to hear a lot of great stories. So hopefully these will be beneficial to help you making your choice on endpoint management. And we'd be very grateful if you'd fill out our survey and get a nice soft t-shirt. So with that, I will give you the last 6 minutes left so that you can quickly pop through that. And thank you very much for attending today. We really appreciate it and look forward to working with you. Bye now.